Welcome to another week of Salute Your Sports. Common Enchev here with Tom Castleman. And after multiple bye weeks, Drew Brackett is back on the show too. We'll have a fun one today. NFL talk as usual, but also some big college football news. The playoff field is set. The Heisman finalists are ready. We'll break it all down. Plus, later in the show, our betting locks of the week with all three of us coming off winning weeks. Just some of the stuff we'll talk about on today's show.
Absolutely. Going to have a little bit of trivia as well. Looking forward to talking about the college football playoffs and Heisman, like you said, Common. And of course, I'm sure we'll be touching on the NFL as we do every week.
Now we'll start out with the NFL. And guys, the AFC crowded at the top. You have the Patriots, Ravens, Titans, Chiefs. Who do you think gets that number one overall seed, Common?
It's the Patriots, without question. And you know, I'm a Chiefs fan. I actually think the Chiefs have a shot to make the Super Bowl because in the playoffs, we've seen Patrick Mahomes do it. We'll see what Mac Jones does come playoff time. But as far as the regular season, New England is the top seed in the AFC. They're the most consistent team. They're 7-1 in the conference. Every other conference team has at least 3 losses in the conference. And their only losses to the Miami Dolphins, who won't be fighting for their top overall seed. Although Miami is pretty hot right now, but nonetheless, like they've already beaten the Bills, they've already beaten the Titans. They have pretty much all the tiebreakers out there. They're on a 7-game winning streak. They're blowing teams out, and then they're winning close games. They're doing a little bit of everything. They've got a great running game. They've got the best defense in football, literally the best scoring defense in football. They're the most consistent team. They're the team I trust most. I mean, you look at these other teams. The Ravens, some weeks they barely squeak by bad teams. Some weeks they lose big. Same for the Titans and the Chiefs, quite frankly. I mean, all these teams that are 8-4, besides the Patriots, aren't very good. I mean, you look at the Ravens, they've got a plus 22 point differential on the season. The Titans have a plus 14 point differential. So they're far from dominant. The Patriots are the only team that's been dominant, and they're the only team that I trust at least in one area. I trust their defense, I trust their coach, and I trust their running game. So the Pats are going to be the top seed in the AFC. I don't see how they won't be.
Yeah, I agree, Common. Couple different things that you didn't touch on, but I think are pretty significant. Patriots, of course, heading into a bye week, which is a massive advantage for Bill Belichick, especially this late in the season. It actually kind of feels perfect for the Patriots that they've had, 13 games up to this point to kind of get into their rhythm, get into their flow a little bit. And now as they're rounding into the playoffs, which they will certainly make, they get a bye week to kind of fine-tune some things and work out a couple different wrinkles, especially as they head into 2 really key AFC matchups where they're going to be in Indianapolis right after the bye week, and then they'll be hosting the Buffalo Bills. I also think that they'll get the top seed because the last 2 games of the season, Jacksonville and Miami. So not really going to be much of a challenge there. If anything, this might be the type of thing where maybe Bill Belichick rests a couple of guys in the last week of the season because he already has it sewn up. Not necessarily saying that he would do that, but I think he's going to have that option, given that they're going to be facing Jacksonville. If they take care of business against Indianapolis and Buffalo, it's all wrapped up. So if he wanted to do that, he would absolutely have the option to. But if it does come down to getting that bye week, I have no doubt that they're going to be able to beat up on the Dolphins as well. And head into the playoffs rolling after a 1-year hiatus. Somehow Bill Belichick and the Patriots are back in the thick of it, pretty much looking not all that different from how they won in the early years with Tom Brady. So time is a flat circle that we're just kind of experiencing on a shorter cycle within the NFL, it seems like.
You guys are high on the Patriots, which I understand 7 in a row they won, but I mean, I don't know. The Chiefs are probably the better team. They have the better quarterback, and I just would trust Mahomes much more than Mac Jones in any situation. So I think the Chiefs sneak in for that 1 seed.
Okay. Well, they have the better quarterback, but I'm not too sure that they have the better team, quite honestly, because the Chiefs' offense actually hasn't looked that good this year. Their running game doesn't look very good. Actually, the Chiefs are playing great right now because their defense is playing great. Tom, I'll have more on Mac Jones later in the show, but this is you kind of stole what I was saving for maybe the last portion of our show. But I'll hit on it very shortly. Like this looks like the first year that Tom Brady won the Super Bowl with the Patriots. Tom Brady, his first year, had 18 touchdowns, 12 picks. He had 1 touchdown and 1 pick in the playoffs. And they won because of their defense and their running game. When you talk about them resting guys, they're like 3 deep in the backfield. They've got incredible running backs, 1, 2, and 3. It's like they're not really losing much if they rest. Like if Damian Harris goes down, like Stevenson is ready. Like they've got a host of running backs that are ready to go. I think since we're talking about the 1 seed, I trust the Patriots more to get the 1 seed. I do trust the Chiefs more come to playoffs, although I don't really trust anyone, quite frankly. And as far as any NFL team, I'll say this about the Patriots, and we'll talk about the Cardinals in a little bit. Patriots have the best record in the AFC. They have technically they have, I think, the 4th best record in the league, but they're tied for the 2nd most wins. They're 6-0 on the road. The Cardinals are 7-0 on the road. So how do you get to the top of the conference? You win road games, and ironically, they played better on the road than they have at home. So that's something crazy to think about. And this is a stat I heard today on ESPN, and I'm trying to remember. Like I overheard it. It wasn't really like you have the TV in the background, and I should have rewinded. But I believe they said that in 11 of the last 12 years, at this point in the season, the Patriots have been the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is crazy to think about. So that consistency and Bill Belichick, I think, is going to ultimately get it for them. And as Tom mentioned, their schedule sets up pretty easy down the stretch. It really does. So I wouldn't be surprised if they run the table the rest of the way. They have the Bills number. Belichick owns the Bills. I did pick the Patriots last week against the Bills. I actually think they can sweep that season series against Buffalo. They were very fortunate with the weather conditions. It definitely helped New England because they had the worst passing game. But I have a feeling that they'll scheme things up next time around as well. I can see the Pats sweeping the Bills this season.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we'll move on to the biggest games of the week, and Bucks Bills, big one. What you got, Common?
Oh yeah, this will be a good game. This line I think just moved from 3 to 3.5 because I was taking a look at my locks of the week. Could this be a preview to that as well? The Bills are a weird team. They're just 3-4 in their last 7 games. My neighbor is telling me his brother is upset now because he placed $1,000 on the Bills to go over 11.5. They were his lucky team before this season, and he's going to be short $1,000 on that one bet because the Bills are not getting the 12 wins. They're just 3-4 in their last 7 games. The Bucks are 5-0 at home, and 4 of those wins. Listen to this: 4 of New England. I was about to say New England. Tampa Bay's 4 of Tampa Bay's 5 wins have come by 20 or more points at home. Granted, against the lesser teams in the NFL, but they have been so extremely dominant at home that I got to go with the Bucks here. They've got the better overall team. They're a more well-rounded offense. They've got better running backs. Leonard Fournette looks great. And Leonard Fournette all of a sudden is a great catching running back too. He used to be more of those like straight hill runner. Leonard Fournette is making like one-handed grabs. Like he's got my fantasy team with small hopes in the playoffs. He's playing so good. I pick him up on daily DraftKings every week, and I invest like $1, and I win like $3 to $5 every week because I pick up Fournette every week, and he gives me great value. I mean, he's playing out of his mind. Tom Brady leads the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns, probably the MVP this year. I know Jonathan Taylor, to me, has to maybe be in that discussion, but there's no way they're giving it to a running back. So the one thing that the Bills do have going for them, they're the number 1 pass defense in the league, although the stats certainly helped them this last game when the Pats only threw the ball 3 times. So you have the number 1 passing offense with the Bucks going up against the number 1 passing defense with the Bills. So something has to give. But because the Bucks tend to play better the second half of the season, like they did last year, I love the way they've played the last few weeks. And I think the Bucks are going to win this game at home, and I think they might win by as much as a touchdown. I really do. I think they're going to be comfortable in this game.
Yeah, I like the Bucks as well. A more complete team, something that I've kind of been harping on the Bills of as of late, at least, not having an established run game, and we kind of see the pitfalls of putting too much on your star quarterback. Star quarterbacks are great for papering over some minor deficiencies on your team, but when you're asking them to hold up the whole bloody house, that's not going to make for a recipe for winning. So. Tampa Bay has a good recipe. I trust their offense with Brady. He's actually looking in some regards better than he has in some of his early 40s seasons. As crazy as that sounds, he actually is getting a little bit better with age somehow, or managing that, and has great weapons around him. And then on the other side of the ball, pass defense is a weakness for Tampa Bay. But they have such a great pass rush that that's going to help cover up for some things as well, especially if Buffalo is unable to establish the run. So give me the Bucks as well.
Oh, absolutely. Bucks at home, Brady in December. Yeah, they'll definitely win this game.
Brady in December and warmer weather this time, though.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he'll thrive in it naturally. How about the Cardinals Rams?
Oh, this is one of the easiest -2 lines I've ever seen. Tom Castleman, if you want a second house, mortgage your money on this game. This is ridiculous.
I'm not doing that.
How are the Cardinals only 2-point favorites in this game? I just don't get it. Like, does Vegas know something that we don't? Like, what is going on in this game? I mean, the Cardinals are so much better than the Rams. The Rams are trash, Tom. They're a fluke. I told you that they're frauds. I mean, they've struggled against good teams this year. They beat the Bucks, then they beat the Colts early in the season when the Colts were losing every game. Otherwise, every team they've beaten is well below 500. The Jaguars, the Texans, the Lions, the Bears, the Giants. I mean, these are some of the teams they've beaten. Meanwhile, the Cardinals beat the Rams 37-20 last time they played. They completely controlled the line of scrimmage, 216 rushing yards in that game. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are back. Just ask the Bears. They looked pretty good in that game. Cardinals are 9-3 against the spread. Rams are just 5-7. I'll definitely have this in locks of the week. I'll tell you right now. I mean, it's incredible how well the Cardinals are playing. They're actually 10-2 this year. They lost one game when Kyler Murray played, and that was on a late pick in the end zone against the Packers that they could have easily gotten a touchdown off of. They've played really well this season. Their defense has impressed me a lot. Ironically, the Cardinals' defense is actually better than the Rams' defense this year. Matthew Stafford got off to that hot start against bad teams, but he's throwing turnovers in recent weeks. I know they had a good game against the Jaguars off a bye week, but if you can't blow out the Jaguars off a bye week, I'm sorry. So I really like the Cardinals in this game. I like the Cardinals a lot in this game. I think they'll win big. I mean, they might not win by 17, but 17 points is a lot for the Rams to shave off in this one. I just really like what the Cardinals are doing. They've completely hammered teams this season. 9 out of 10 wins, the Cardinals have won by more than 3 this year. They should win by more than 3 in this game. No problemo.
Yeah, I'm on the Cardinals as well in this matchup, getting a bit healthier. Kyler Murray looking pretty decent on some, as usual, shoddy fielding out in Soldiers Field. So, yeah, I'll take the Cardinals as well. I believe that Edwards is coming back. Hopkins played in some limited action, so presumably he'll be a little bit better to go in this game as well, which means with a full complement of weapons around him, Kyler Murray is going to be fantastic as usual. Looking forward to capitalizing on that for some fantasy purposes as well in our league, looking to sew up a playoff spot, which I'm feeling pretty confident about. I think Drew is as well. So, yeah, give me the Cards at home this weekend.
Yeah, that is a weird line. But you've got to like the Cardinals at home over the Rams and Kyler Murray, James Conner. I think Chase Edmonds is going to be back. So they should win this game, but I wouldn't be stunned if the Rams won.
I have a couple quick follow-ups. First off, my fantasy team is going to shock the world and make the playoffs. I'm going to win the last 2 weeks and get the last playoff spot. Tom Castleman, you're going to
That
help me
requires
out.
like everyone to lose, though.
Yes, it does, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Fantasy Magic is coming my way, and then I'm going to run the table and win the league. That's just what I'm predicting. I'm the eternal optimist, of course. But I do have a question for you, Tom. Since you're, and actually even Drew, because I think both of you have the Cardinals, not the Cardinals, the Rams in the Super Bowl. Are you ready to back off that Rams Super Bowl prediction yet, or not yet?
No.
No?
I'm
No,
gonna diamond
I don't-
hands this one. I'm not
Yeah, I
gonna
don't-
sell low on my stock.
I don't back off predictions either. Who else do I have?
I can't remember who else you picked, but I thought you guys both picked the Rams to win it. Did you not?
Yeah, I definitely have the Rams to win it all. Let me see if I happen to type that down. I don't think so.
That sounds like me to say the Rams. So I'll take that.
I think Bucks Patriots would be a pretty good Super Bowl, huh?
That'd be, oh my gosh, like Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth would like die and go to heaven if that happened.
And so will Tom
and
because
I mean,
Tom
if it was
loves
Buck
Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth.
They're my favorite
course.
broadcast duo.
If it was Buck Patriots, the Bucks would win by 2 touchdowns.
I don't think
Brady
so.
MVP. Oh yeah, carve apart his former team.
Oh no, he didn't do it last time. They won by 2 points. I think it would be a really close game, honestly. I think it would be very similar to the last time they played.
I had Rams over Chiefs, by the way. I wrote down my Super Bowl. I didn't write
Okay.
down everyone else's.
I think I had Chiefs over Bucks. I think I repeated the Super Bowl and flipped them. I can't remember for the life of me who Drew picked to make it out of the AFC and who he picked.
Probably Bills, knowing Drew.
Yeah, probably the
Went a little
Bills,
contrarian.
Rams, probably.
Yeah,
I might have thought he had Rams Chiefs, but he picked the Rams to win.
it's one of those two, probably, if I had to guess.
Okay.
But no,
Well-
I'm still gonna stick with the Rams. I mean, they have to they lost Robert Woods, which is very significant given how good of a route runner he is, and Odell Beckham is still really talented even if he's not at his apex. It's just going to take a little more time for him to get ready. So I think, come playoff time, the Rams will round into fashion a little bit better, or they'll just completely wet the bed and leave Drew and I standing alone on the bandwagon, so to speak.
I think they'll wet
I'm
the
fine
bed.
with that.
I think they'll wet the bed, but I'm not 100% sure because this year is a crazy year in the NFL. Anything really, truly anything can happen. But I'm not impressed with what I've seen from the Rams. Not impressed at all, quite frankly. And ironically, Matthew Stafford has barely been in the playoffs, and he may have a hard time, I think, come the playoffs. I actually look for very similar matchups to last year, maybe in the NFC Championship. But the Cardinals may have something to say about it. The thing I'm most curious about is to see how Kyler Murray plays in the playoffs, how good the Cardinals play in the playoffs, because they look like the best team in the NFL, but they've never been there before. So I can't wait to see how that works out come playoff time.
Yeah, should be an exciting couple of months here, few months, as we're moving on to college, guys, and the final rankings are out. Comment, I'll let you run through them. What'd you think?
Well, Tom and I kind of briefly chatted off the air before you came on, but I actually thought this was a slam dunk for the committee. They were smiling watching these games. They got exactly what they wanted, and I think it's pretty obvious. I really don't see that anything you can argue. I mean, I think Alabama has to be number one. They won the best conference. Like I said last week, 13 of 14 teams are bowl eligible in the SEC. Alabama beat a Georgia team 41-24. They put up 41 points against a defense that was allowing just 7 a game before this. They definitely deserve that top ranking because Georgia had clobbered just about everyone all season long. Michigan's a solid number 2. I mean, they beat a great Ohio State team by 15. Then they beat Iowa 45-3 in the Big Ten title game. So only loss was a close loss to MSU. I've got no problem with Michigan as number 2. I don't know that they're the second best team per se, but we've talked about this. 2 versus 3 doesn't matter because they'll play each other regardless. Georgia actually opens as a 7.5-point favorite in that game. But you got to look at the resumes. And when the resume is clearly a little bit more clearly better, I go with that. If the resumes are really close, then I go with the eye test. But in this case, Michigan's a Big Ten champ with the win over Ohio State, the second best team in their conference. Georgia did not win its conference, and they lost to the other top team in its conference. So I have no problem with Michigan at number 2. You could argue Michigan and Georgia. I wouldn't be upset if Georgia was 2. But again, that one doesn't matter that much because both of those teams will play each other. I do think Georgia's definitely over Cincinnati. They had one loss the whole season against Alabama, who has one loss the last 2 seasons. Cincinnati deserves the 4th spot. They beat Notre Dame on the road. Notre Dame was number 5. The only thing I can maybe argue here, if I'm ranking the teams personally, who I think are the 4 best teams in the country, I actually think Cincinnati might be the 5th best team in the country. I actually think Ohio State's a little bit better than them. But Ohio State had 2 losses, didn't play in the SEC, didn't play against an undefeated Georgia, didn't play in the conference title game, which a 2-loss Alabama would have lost a conference title game to the number 1 team that's undefeated the whole season. That's where it's a little different. And even I was struggling with putting in 2-loss Alabama, even though I was leaning that way. So I can see Cincinnati over Ohio State, who I would have put 5th ahead of Notre Dame. I would have flipped Notre Dame, Ohio State. But ultimately, you can't go with, a team that didn't play in the conference title game in Ohio State and had 2 losses over an undefeated Cincinnati. So the committee got it right. And I think we're going to see a rematch of the SEC championship game for the national title game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of things you said, except I don't even know if I can really give the committee credit for getting it right when it was made
obvious.
So easy for them. They had no decision making that they had to do in this matchup. Like you listed all the marks against Ohio State, so that's an easy call to leave them out. If they were on the fence about Notre Dame, well, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame in South Bend, so that's an easy out as well. The committee had to do no thinking whatsoever. All they had to do was be conscientious to not make an SEC rematch in the semifinal, and that it worked out perfectly. So committee gets no credit in my book because they didn't really have to do any work heading into this one. We went on ad nauseum for weeks and weeks about all the different scenarios, and ended up just shaking out like everything's super obvious. Cool. So looking forward to those games, looking forward to the playoff. Me, I've been driving the Bearcat bandwagon. Biggest Bearcat fan outside of Ohio, probably. So I'm going to cheer for them to cover the number against Alabama. I don't think that they win outright, but I hope they can make at least a competitive game, because I think narratively that'll do a lot for a group of 5 schools going forward, and kind of showing like, hey, when you have a special group of 5 school, you can put them in these big matchups and expect them to do pretty well. I think they lost by 1 point to Georgia last year in the bowl game on like a last-second field goal. So if they can be in that sort of area, single possession, even 9 points if you want to make it a single digit, a 2-possession victory for Alabama, I think that's a pretty good moral victory. But of course, I'll be cheering for the Bearcats to win outright anyway. So on Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that game could be closer than the experts think. Because we saw Cincinnati, last bowl game, it was a really close game, I think, against Georgia. We saw them beat Notre Dame. So, yeah, it should be exciting. I like the playoff. And Michigan, Georgia, really good game.
Yeah, Michigan, Georgia, while I do think Georgia at first glance, and I haven't done my in-depth breakdown yet, but at first glance, I do think Georgia will win, but 7.5 points is kind of a big line. I would lean towards Michigan. And what's the Alabama line, Drew? I know you're Mr. Line.
Yeah, the Alabama line's 13.5. Pretty big.
That's about where it should be. I expect Alabama to win by about 2 touchdowns. That 1-4 game never seems to be close. And I'm not so concerned. I'm not so sure that Cincinnati is going to be as close to Alabama as you guys think, because I think Alabama's rounding into shape. I think when it's a big game and Nick Saban and the Tide know it's a big game, they wake up. They've almost sort of played up to their competition and down to their competition this this season. But in a college football playoff, I don't think they're going to be playing down to anyone. I would actually probably say Alabama by 14. And I think Alabama will cover that line personally. But we'll talk more about that matchup when it comes. But I think Bryce Young is phenomenal. I can't say enough about him and how well he played in that SEC title game. And I think Cincinnati's gonna have a hard time. I think Notre Dame, they beat Notre Dame, which was a nice win. Notre Dame wasn't as good at the time. I think it was 24-13. Notre Dame's weakness is their offense. Not that they're bad at offense. They're a good offense, but they're nowhere near Alabama's offense. I like Desmond Ridder. He's a good player for Cincinnati, but I don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to keep up with that Alabama offense come that game. But I am happy to see them get in. I did hear they're going to go to the Big 12 though. So maybe when are they going to the Big 12? Drew probably knows. Is there plans for Cincinnati to go to the Big 12 at some point soon?
I think so. I don't know the details of it, but that sounds right.
Okay. So it's like, who would be the next power conference team? Because I did see that game, like they're saying like 40,000 people in the stadium and it was rocking. So that shows you like a smaller school and how, smaller amount of fans. I was thinking like to myself, like, well, heck, Mizzou has over 70,000 in its stadium, and Mizzou's not nearly on Cincinnati's level, our Mizzou Tigers. So.
Yeah, I mean, Mizzou, just real quick, I know we're going to get on the Heisman, but Mizzou, big bowl, guys, Armed Forces Bowl against Army. Yeah.
Did you guys get that email about buying tickets and heading to wherever that game is?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's in Fort Worth.
Are you going to be going, Drew?
I will not be going to Texas, no.
They used to always be in that like Independence Bowl in Shreveport. And then they were in like a Texas Bowl, I think against Navy when we were in college, I think. And Navy ran all over them and Army could run all over them again. It's interesting because Mizzou's rush defense is really poor. I do like what Mizzou did the second half of the year. Tyler Beatty I don't know if you guys followed how well Tyler Beatty did this year. He was first team all SEC running back. And he was probably like top 10 player in the country this year. Like if they had extended the Heisman to 8 people, I could see him being like in the 8 finalists for it. He was out of this world. And I covered Tyler Beatty at Mizzou when he was younger, and he was nowhere near this good. Not a very high recruit. Did pretty good his first 2 years, but like he burst on the scene this year. This was something that like he hasn't even been close to this good ever before. He was literally Mizzou's entire offense. So shout out to Mr. Tyler Beatty. Kept his pants on this year. I don't know if you guys saw the viral video a couple of years ago when he was tackled and his pants
I did not see his pants fall off. No, I missed that.
Against Tennessee. No one could tackle him, so his pants stayed on this year.
Well, good his pants stayed on, but I don't even know a transition. We'll just go to the Heisman. Bryce Young, a finalist. I think that's probably where we'll lean, but Common, who do you have?
Yeah, the Heisman finalist list is out. Aiden Hutchinson for Michigan, 14 sacks, second most in the nation, 3 sacks and 7 tackles against Ohio State. Good to see a defensive player get up there, but we know he's not winning. It's really the 3 quarterbacks who are the 3 stars all year. Bryce Young, 43 touchdown passes, 4,322 pass yards. Second most touchdowns in the country behind Western Kentucky's quarterback, who was playing against nobodies. Bryce Young had 1 more touchdown pass and 3 more pass yards than Kenny Pickett, another finalist out of Pittsburgh, who could be the first quarterback taken in next season's NFL draft. Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, of course, are only freshmen, have to play at least 1 more year of college football. C.J. Stroud, the third one, 38 touchdown passes for Ohio State, but they didn't have a conference title game and a bit less yards than the other 2. But this is definitely Bryce Young. He's beyond such a heavy favorite. Like, I think it was like minus 4,000. So it's not even worth betting on him to win it. I mean, this could be a really, really easy decision. He played in the best conference, and he actually still had slightly better numbers than the other 2 guys. He set the record for most touchdown passes by a freshman quarterback in college history, breaking Jameis Winston's record. Tom knows because I gave him that trivia question a couple weeks ago, and he's got the Heisman moment. He had multiple Heisman moments the last 2 weeks. I know he didn't play great at all against Auburn, but he rebounded late. 97-yard drive to tie the game, throws the game-tying touchdown, then the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Then he had 421 pass yards, which was the second most passing yards on an SEC title game in the history of the SEC title game. Also 3 pass touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown, another 40 yards on the ground. He did it against a Georgia team that was allowing 6.9 points per game the whole season. So he got it's his to lose. The interesting thing here, guys, is that he's looking to become the first Alabama quarterback to win the Heisman. Think about all the great Alabama players. They've never had a quarterback win the Heisman, and it speaks to how college football has changed and how Nick Saban has adapted to the times with Alabama, because it used to be Alabama won because of its defense and running game. Well, last year, Devontae Smith won the Heisman as a receiver. This year, Young is going to win it as a quarterback. So even Nick Saban sees that it's all about the passing game now in college football. Bryce Young.
Yeah, Bryce Young, for all the reasons you mentioned, I think he's like second in QBR, second in touchdowns. He's had a fantastic season. The place where I found a little bit of lament was the lack of representation for running backs, particularly Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State. When you consider the season that he had, you look at the All Big Tens, I don't think there's a single Michigan State offensive lineman on the All Big Ten squads. 70%, give or take, of Kenneth Walker III's yards came after contact, which means he's getting hit and then still going forward. Rushed for over 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. Like, if I put it in this context, if you're starting a college football team, is Kenny Pickett the first player you're going to put on that team? To me, the answer is no. So if he's not going to be like clearly the Heisman, like there's at least a couple other quarterbacks. Like, I know it's going to be Bryce Young, so it's a kind of a moot point whether you put in Kenneth Walker or not. But I think he absolutely deserved a shot to have to at least be in consideration for the Heisman. You consider that his worst game was against Ohio State, where he was coming in dinged up, and also the game script was so heavily against him that they hardly ran the ball in that game, period. So if you were to remove that game and just go based on all the other games where Michigan State was, competitive at the very least, he's the most important player on that team. So that's like my only quibble. But that said, Bryce Young's an easy pick to win the Heisman this year. Stats, and also has the Heisman moment with a big game against Georgia to round things out and get Alabama into the playoff.
I'll counter that real fast before I get Drew's take on it. I don't like Kenneth Walker because he folded in the big games. 6 carries for 25 yards against Ohio State, but he actually
but that's because they were down like 56 points.
They were down, but he had several really bad games this year. 19 carries for 61 yards against Nebraska, 23 carries for 84 yards against Indiana, and then against Michigan he did play really good, but he's had a few games that he wasn't that dominant. He's a very good player, but that is true. A lot of them have it off games, but he had too many off games for me. I don't think I'd put him up there with any of those 4 guys. I could have him as number 5, but Kenny Pickett had a phenomenal season for Pittsburgh. He had more than 40 touchdown passes. That's really good.
They played one ranked team, and that was in the conference championship game against Wake Forest. Walker had like an objectively harder
sure,
schedule.
But what did Kenneth Walker do against ranked Ohio State? When
they were down. That wasn't just on him, though.
No, I know, but
it's a minor quibble.
That's fair. Drew, who's your Heisman?
Yeah, I'll take Bryce Young, of course, to win the Heisman. As you mentioned, he had his Heisman moment, and that was a heck of a game, the Iron Bowl, and then of course the game against Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to see how the Heisman has changed over the years for Alabama, because Alabama, up until a couple of years ago, didn't have any Heismans. Mark Ingram, then we had Derrick Henry, then we had Devontae Smith, and now they're looking for their 4th Heisman and their 2nd straight Heisman. Bryce Young, by the way, I think he's going to be a great NFL player. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Mahomes because he runs to pass. He's not a traditionally great runner, but he runs to pass and he does it really well. Bryce Young, I think, is going to be one of the easiest Heisman votes in Heisman decisions. I'm looking forward to seeing him and CJ Stroud because I think both of those guys are the real deal.
Up next, we have Locks of the Week. Common, you want to go through the standings?
Yeah, Locks of the Week. What a huge week for the show last week. A winning week for all of us. I actually was 4-1, heating up. I had the Warriors covering against the Suns. They did lose that game. I had them covering by 3. They lost by 8. They beat the Suns later in the week, but that was the only game I missed. I had Blazers -7 over the Pistons last week. They won 110-92. I had the Pats covering 2.5 against the Bills. They won 17-14. The Colts covering 8.5 against the Texans. They won 31-0. Dolphins -5 over the Giants. The Dolphins winning 20-9. Drew, you got your EPL under. Newcastle Burnley under 2.5. He was correct. Newcastle winning 1-0. Saints Cowboys under 47.5. 27-17. You just barely got that one. Bears +7 against the Cardinals. You were wrong. Cardinals winning by 11. You had the Ravens covering against the Steelers 3.5. Wrong there. The Steelers won 2019 on a great comeback win. And you had the Seahawks 3.5 against the Niners. That was correct. The Seahawks winning 30-23. And then Tom, you were also 3-2. You had the opposite of Drew. You had the Cardinals covering against the Bears. They covered for you. Then you had the Niners covering 3 against the Seahawks. So you guys went 1-1 head-to-head. You also had the Colts like I did. And then you had the Vikings -7 over the Lions. Missed that one badly. How about that Detroit Lions? First win of the season, 29-27. Let's go. And then you had Washington +2.5 at the Raiders. Washington winning by 2. Standings, Drew, you're in first, 31-22-2. Tom's in second, 29-23-3. And I'm not far behind, 25-30. Moving on up, getting my rhythm going. So it should be a good week. Expecting a 5-0 week for myself and probably 4-1 weeks for both of you guys.
Be nice for the show to do that well.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Tom was looking for 14-1 last week because he wanted you to miss one because you guys had the same pick. We weren't 14-1, but we were close. We were close.
Yeah, it was good.
What do you got, Drew?
Yeah, so I'll do my EPL under. I'll get Arsenal, Southampton under 2.5 goals. Thursday night, Vikings -3. And then on Sunday, Tennessee -9. Rams +2.5, and then the Bears +12.5. We're going to go back to the Bears on the road against the Packers.
Who is the Titans playing that line that you listed?
The Jags.
Oh, okay, yeah. That might be fair.
Rams +2.5 against the Cardinals, of course.
Wrong on that one, but Tom,
I figured.
Tom, what do you got?
All right. Well, unfortunately, I think Drew and I are going head-to-head in a couple of these.
Ooh.
Or no, not a couple. Maybe just one. Maybe not at all.
I think you're picking the Cardinals, aren't you?
No. So I have Saints -5 over the Jets. Alvin Kamara's coming back. The Jets stink. Taysom Hill is just trucking over people at quarterback. So even though Jets are at home, give me the Saints. Washington football team, I believe they've been good to me the past 2 weeks in a row, so I'll have them covering 4 as home dogs against the Cowboys. Here's where I'm going opposite of Drew. I've got the Steelers +3 against the Vikings. No Dalvin Cook, no Adam Thielen. I see Pittsburgh doing just enough to cover against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, maybe even winning outright. Give me Seattle -7.5 over the Texans. It feels like any team against the Texans is a safe bet. And then I can't hate myself enough to do Packers -12.5. So give me Chargers -10.5. Jake Fromm, if you remember him, former Georgia Bulldog, will be quarterbacking the New York Giants. So I think that's just going to be a rough game. Chargers looked really good against the Bengals last week, just completely shattering everything you and I were talking about, Common, which, is fine. It
It
happens.
happens.
So yeah, give me Chargers minus 10.5 to round out my NFL picks for the week.
Awesome. I've got Cardinals -2 is what I got them on DraftKings. That's what I'm rolling with. Cardinals -2 over the Rams. Rams have struggled against good teams, as I talked about. They beat the Bucs. Their only team that's been good this year. I know they beat the Colts early in the season when Indy got off to that 0-3 start. They've beaten the Jaguars, Texans, Lions, just to name a few. Bears as well. All these teams under 500. When they went up against good teams, they've gotten smacked around. They got smacked around by the Titans. They got clobbered by the Packers. Garbage time touchdowns made it look closer. And then keep this in mind, the Cardinals beat the Rams 37-20 in the earlier meeting this year, a game that they went over 200 rush yards on the ground, completely controlled the line of scrimmage. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are both back. They teamed up for a touchdown against the Bears last week. Cards are 10-2 this year. Only one loss when Kyler Murray doesn't play. When Kyler Murray does play, rather, but both ways actually. They lost once when he didn't play. They lost once the other way around as well. They're a pick in the end zone away from the Packers from being 11-1. 9 of 10 wins have been by 3 points or more. So they're in good shape to cover. They're 9-3 against the spread. The Rams are just 5-7 against the spread. I think this is the easiest lock that I have this week. Cardinals -2 over the Rams. No problem. Moving on, I like the Ravens +2.5 at the Browns. These two teams just played less than 2 weeks ago. Lamar Jackson threw four interceptions, and the Ravens still won 16-10. That's crazy. Lamar isn't going to be that bad again. The Ravens have won 4 straight versus the Browns. The Browns offense is averaging 10 points per game over the last 3 games. A broken offense. Baker Mayfield is playing hurt. He can't pass the ball to save his life. Baltimore's weakness is their pass defense. The way to beat the Ravens is pass against them. Well, the Browns can't pass against the Ravens because they can't pass against anyone. Hunt and Chubb have been banged up, the 2 great running backs. They actually had 15 carries for 36 yards the last time these two teams met up. So I think the Ravens are going to win outright, but I'll take the 2.5 and feel pretty good about that line. Then I also have the Seahawks -7.5 at the Texans. Same as Tom. Russell Wilson is back. That fourth quarter near comeback against Washington seemed to spark him. Seahawks played well passing and running last week. Texans are 2-10, but out of those 10 losses, 7 of those have been by double digits, including 5 by 20 points or more. They lost by 31 last week. They've just been getting shellacked. So I think Seattle is going to shellac them again. Kind of a confidence game for the Seahawks. They pretty much have to win out to make the playoffs, but that's a proud, competitive bunch. And even if they don't do enough to get to the playoffs, they're certainly going to want to win. And they see this as an opportunity to hunt a poor team. Then I have the Bucs -3.5 over the Bills. Bucs have been dominant at home, 5-0, as I said. 4 of those wins have been by 20 or more. I know against lesser teams, but I feel good they win by more than 3 here. Bucs have a better overall team, a more well-rounded passing and rushing attack, not one-dimensional like the Bills are. So stout run defense, good players around Brady. The Bucs should go to 6-0 at home and should win by 4 or more, no problem. And finally, I'm hitting up the NBA tonight. Not as many stats as the other ones, but I like the Lakers -4 over the Celtics. I think LeBron and Davis are both slotted to play. I just feel like this is a rebound game for the Lakers. I think they win comfortably against the Celtics tonight on TNT national television. LeBron James says that he's finally feeling more healthy after all the injuries, the COVID layoff, etc. Look for a big night for LeBron tonight. Lakers winning by more than 4.
All right, 13-2 week as a squad. Here we come.
All right, sounds good.
Absolutely.
So you have what two picks you disagree with Drew is
just one. I've got one
Just
against
And
Drew,
then
and then
I
you've
have
got
one.
one against Drew. So yeah,
Okay,
13
so
and 2 is the best
13
we
and
can
2.
do.
13 and 2
Love
sounds
it.
good to me.
Love it.
Works for me.
Trivia time, right?
Trivia time. I've got 2 trivia questions. They're both
All right.
they're both more easy. They're on the easier end. I've had some really hard ones last time. As Tom Castleman likes to do, I'm doing this in honor of Tom Castleman.
All right.
So I have themed trivia questions. Do you have trivia questions, Tom?
I also have. I could have up to 3, but one's kind of a bogus one. I've got 2 trivia questions.
Okay, we'll do 2. So I'll get started. I'll ask mine. This is the one that's a little bit easier because you could probably reason it out by what are the great teams. But what college has won the most Heismans, and what's the amount? This is a trick question.
Most Heismans. So first, like in all honesty, I actually have the Wikipedia page for Heisman's pulled up because I'm going a different way on the Heisman trivia question.
Okay, because I have a second Heisman trivia question. It might be the same as you, but go ahead.
Okay, so if I had to pick, I haven't actually I would have to guess somebody like Oklahoma.
Okay.
Like 9.
What do you think, Drew?
I was gonna say USC 7.
Okay, so Drew, you have the number. Tom, you have the school, but there's actually 2 schools. USC has 6, by the way, so they're in 4th place on the Heisman voting. So Ohio State, or no, oh crap, I might have just given away the other one. Oklahoma has 7, Ohio State has 7, and one other school also has 7. What is that other school? Oklahoma's Heisman, by the way, Billy Vessel is 1952, Steve Owens 1969, Billy Sims, the running back, 1978, 03 quarterback Jason White, 08 quarterback Sam Bradford, 2017 Baker Mayfield, 2018 Kyler Murray. I'm not going to read off Ohio State's guys because actually I will. Yeah, Les Horvath, Vic Giannakouts, Howard Cassidy, Archie Griffin, Eddie George, Troy Smith. And then there's one other school. It's a blue blood. Most of their Heismans came from back in the day, though. They haven't had a single Heisman since we were born. Nebraska is not it.
Not Nebraska.
Not Nebraska.
Notre Dame?
Notre Dame is the answer. Their last Heisman was Tim Brown, 1987, before any of us were born.
Wow.
So
still considered a blue blood. Wow, that's incredible.
Well, Notre Dame's still a blue blood.
Well, I know, but
they're number
blue blood
5 in the country.
But not having a Heisman.
Well, Alabama didn't have a Heisman up until about 10 years ago, and they still had some national titles.
Nick Saban coming in, yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. What's the other trivia you've got?
The other trivia I have: one athlete has won the Heisman twice. Who is it?
Archie Griffin.
Nice, Drew Brackett. Do you know the years in the school?
Oklahoma both years.
Not Oklahoma.
70. Oh, he didn't go to Oklahoma?
No. You are in the right decade, though.
Did I say a year?
You said 70, and you were about to say.
Yeah, it's like 72, 70. No, 73, 74.
You got one of them right.
It's 74, 75 then.
Yeah.
And then I thought he played for Oklahoma. I guess he played for Ohio State then.
Archie Griffin, Ohio State, the only guy to win the Heisman twice. Over 1,600 rush yards one of those seasons. Did not have a great NFL career, though, surprisingly. Solid career, not horrible, but by no means anything spectacular given his college accolades.
I mean, that's pretty accurate. I mean, like Tim Tebow was a fantastic college quarterback and just not very good at the NFL level. So
right, but that's different. Running backs, I think, tend to translate a little bit better than quarterbacks.
Typically, yeah, that's fair.
Tom, what do you have?
So my Heisman one is that with Bryce Young likely to win the Heisman this year, that would give Alabama back-to-back years of having Heisman candidates. This has happened only 4 other times in Heisman history. Can you name the schools?
Okay, well, Oklahoma is one of them because I just went through the Heismans. They had back-to-back Heisman. So Oklahoma is definitely
Oklahoma. Ohio
State is because Archie Griffin.
Oh, then I missed it then. So there's an extra one.
because there's different players. Archie Griffin won it 2 years in a row. I believe that Tommy Frazier, the Nebraska quarterback, was nominated 2 years in a row. But is it different players? What's the question exactly?
So the way I had it phrased was back-to-back Heisman's with different players.
Okay. So Nebraska's not one of them then?
What years would that have been? Because I may have skimmed over it on
I think
accident.
it's 94, 95, I think Tommy Frazier, or 93, 94. I think he was a two-time Heisman finalist, maybe. And I don't think
finalist, maybe, but no, he did not win either year.
No, he didn't win either year.
So obviously you got Oklahoma. So there's one blue blood, and then two that are names you would absolutely know, but not
Harvard
necessarily.
and Yale.
You got Yale, actually. Yale, the second and third year that they did the Heisman Award had two players winning back-to-back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used to be a powerhouse. So we're missing two more?
Mm-hmm.
Michigan?
One contemporary blue blood and one... I'll give the obvious hint a little bit later, not Michigan.
Syracuse is the non-blue blood.
No.
Notre Dame?
Nope. Technically, one of them has been vacated. Technically.
USC?
USC with Leinart and Reggie Bush. And then Mizzou's opponent, actually, upcoming for the bowl game. Army had back-to-back Heisman winners, I believe. Let me scroll. I think that was like in the 40s or 50s.
Heisman winners, not Heisman finalists.
Yeah.
Heisman winners.
Did I not clarify that?
Yeah, I guess
I thought it was finalists. I was confused. That's all.
Yeah, I was confused also. But I think it's because you're sort of like saying that Bryce Young is going to win. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense. Yes, because Tommy Frazier, I think, was a Heisman finalist, I believe, twice, maybe, didn't win. And I know, I remember, I think Tua and Trevor Lawrence were both finalists, but I guess they were different players. But I think those guys were finalists multiple times, I believe, too.
Yeah, no, it was just Heisman winners, for same school, different years. Army was 45-46.
Okay.
They had a couple of guys winning it, so...
Okay.
Yeah, fun stuff with the Heisman coming up.
Well, Mizzou has some good players. Hall of Famer Kellen Winslow, the tight end, father of the other tight end who had other issues that shall not be named. But Kellen Winslow. Rep Mizzou, Kellen. Andy Russell, a Mizzou Tiger, too, that played for the Steelers. So... Those are the guys I like.
Salutes. What do you got?
Why don't you start, Drew?
Well, I was just going to say it's December and it's bowl season. And so that means we get to watch even the lesser, the smaller school bowls starting December 14th, 17th. Looking forward to that.
The Potato Bowl, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
Sure.
Who's playing in that one?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
I was going to tell you guys this off air, but I should have sent both of you an invite to our Capital One Bowl Mania contest. I hope you guys received that. Our college pick'em contest for the year. Drew Brackett was in first. I was in second, and Tom was in third based off confidence points. I think I was actually last in correct picks, though. I think Tom
by like one. Yeah.
Second. Yeah, by like one. And I think Drew had maybe two more.
Drew ran the table.
Me. Yeah, Drew was killing this year in the college confidence picks for college football. So congratulations, Drew.
I got to get the wheels cranking on what my thing is going to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, the Idaho Potato Bowl is Wyoming and Kent State, by the way.
Okay, I can't wait to watch that one. Josh Allen will be tuned in. Josh Allen will be watching.
Josh Allen, Gary Pinkel, Nick Saban. Yes.
That's right. Saban and Pinkel coached at Kent State. I think they might have played there too, or something like that. One of them.
They played there. They played there. Both of them played there.
Yeah, they played there. That's right. Pinkel coached at Toledo, I think it was actually. But cool.
Correct.
Cool. Well, I'll be tuned in, Drew. Me and you will be both watching. You'll be looking for a low-scoring game. I'll be looking for a shootout.
Sure.
You know what conference has exciting games, Drew? The MAC.
The SEC?
MAC, well, the SEC does too, because now they score points in the SEC. But the MAC has all these like shootouts all the time. So I can't wait to see the MAC teams in the bowl games.
Tuesday night action, right? Is it
The
Tuesdays or
Maction-
Wednesdays that they play?
I think
forget
it's
which
Tuesday.
one.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays, actually.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah, Actions Tuesdays, Wednesdays, so they're all over the weekdays.
Well, I'll give a salute before I do my statement, and I'll let Tom go. My salute is to Larry Bird, one of the all-time great legends. It's his birthday today. Everybody go watch Larry Bird videos. It's to one of, I think, Eminem's songs. And Larry Bird, probably the best pure passer in the history of the basketball league, the National Basketball Association, a wonder of a player. I saw something on ESPN. They were saying, like, kids don't know how good Larry Bird was. So please go back and educate yourself on Larry Legend, an absolute legend. So birthday salute to him. And then I'll save my statement after Tom goes.
all right. So, Drew, you mentioned that it is indeed bowl season. The wheels are already turning on what my themed name is going to be. Justin Fields of Gold last year is a pretty good name, I think. So I'll have to kind of work out a good one for this year. But speaking of bowl games, we are, we touched on this last week, Common. We are in this tenuous, just kind of nasty season of also coaches leaving programs for new jobs as bowl season is coming around. And it's just a really bad message that we expect players to show up for these games, regardless of like their draft status or anything along those lines. And we lampoon them pretty harshly when they don't. And yet it seems that by and large, coaches get a little bit more of a pass for leaving current jobs for new ones. The most notable ones, of course, were Lincoln Riley last week, and then also Brian Kelly, who, if things shook out differently on championship weekend, Notre Dame could have found themselves potentially in the college football playoff with a completely new head coach. This is bonkers. It's not right to the kids to expect them to honor all of their commitments and then not hold the coaches to the same standards. I mean, we all know the NCAA doesn't have all that much governing power, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if there were some sort of moratorium or ban on hiring coaches from bowl-eligible programs until after those bowls are wrapped up. Of course, if you want to hire, maybe some sort of assistant or somebody who's outside of the FBS, especially if you're in a smaller school, go ahead and do that sort of thing. But, we've had situations where I believe Cristobal from Oregon is leaving for Miami, and they're heading into a bowl game that, it's not for a championship, but it's still a significant game for the program. So it's absolutely, it's just really unsavory that coaches get to kind of move around like this. And in some ways abandon the kids that they've been coaching and recruiting for years and years and years and say, I like you guys, but not that much because I've got more money or a better job or whatever elsewhere. So put some sort of ban on hiring coaches until after bowl season takes place and, keep the teams together for at least that long.
Tom, I have two things to say. One, if they put in that type of ban and extend the recruiting period, then what you're saying makes absolute sense. The reason why the coaches bolt is because they can recruit. So they want to get to their new program and start recruiting because they have early recruiting day and even national signing days early on in the season. So if they're going to stay a few weeks and prepare for bowl games, they are potentially missing out on recruits.
For sure.
So that I actually don't blame the coaches for doing that because they need to get started with their new program. However, I do like what you're saying. They should probably put a ban on no recruiting during bowl season and extend national signing day a few weeks further down the road. That way, what you're saying makes sense. But I actually don't blame the coaches for leaving because the reason why they do leave is that it's a recruiting time and that's a busy time for them in recruiting. So I don't necessarily think, in a way that I guess they're sort of being selfish, but they want to win at their new program.
That's why I'm saying like it's a messy sort of situation where, they can't do both things, fully. So like take that option off the table. Maybe make bowl season just the entire month of December, ending on New Year's Day, because I think we have games after January as well. Barely. Just find ways to make it easier. Move up bowl games a little bit. I understand all the reasons why that doesn't take place, but
I don't necessarily think they need to move up bowl games because teams also prepare, and during bowl week they do special team and bonding activities. I think the solution would be to put like a dead period on recruiting and move back National Signing Day, because Like,
Yeah, that's the easiest
kids have
way,
enough
yeah.
time. I mean, think about when you make your decisions for college. Unless you're a professional athlete, like, not professional, but you're an athlete. A lot of us I made my decision last minute. Like, I signed up for Mizzou very last minute, as of course I would.
That's so on point.
That is so on point. But like, when did you sign up for school though? You don't fill out your enrollment papers until November, the year before.
I got accepted into Mizzou November of my senior year in high school.
But when did you put your paperwork in to be an official Mizzou student? Because I did my applications early. Soon after?
Yeah, so as soon as I got accepted, I was just like, well, Mizzou was the target, so I'm just going to knock this all out.
Okay, because
I'm Brad.
Sure. I didn't fill out my stuff until when high school was ending in May, June type deal. And some people may do it earlier. Maybe they do it April. I'm not talking about applications, Drew. I'm talking about fully enrolling as a Mizzou student, setting up
it
everything.
Feels late to me if you're doing it in June. Okay. That's like summer welcome time, man.
Okay, maybe it was May, but I do remember that it was literally near the deadline, because I remember that there was only the only dorm options were either Gillette, which was getting renovated, or the wildly expensive dorms. So I ended up choosing Gillette by default. But nonetheless, though, I feel like most people, maybe you guys did it early, but you can make your college decision in March or April, right? Official decision. And is that late? Is March or April late? I mean, what is late?
Feels late to me. That feels late to me.
Okay. Wasn't National Signing Day
early decision? I don't know when.
National Signing Day is the first week of February. I feel like it's early. I remember doing National Signing Day live shots when I was at Arkansas State outside the football stadium in the freezing cold. So I feel like National Signing Day is pretty early. They can maybe push it back a little bit. Look it up, Tom. When is National Signing Day for college football in 2022? It would be. And I think there's an early National Signing Day now too. The early and the late periods.
So November 10th was the fall 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's February.
February
2nd, yeah.
February 2nd, like I said, early in February. Maybe you just push that back a few weeks, and then you just do a dead period for a few weeks during bowl prep. And heck, honestly, if your school just put a dead period the month of December, and then extend it to mid-February or late February.
Mm-hmm.
They have plenty of time, because that's the reason why the coaches do it, because they want to move on to their next school. So, anyways. My statement of the week is that the Patriots have found their quarterback of the future in Mac Jones. And I'm picking this week to specifically make this statement because they just had a football game where he threw 3 passes and they still won. So it's not after a 4-touchdown glamorous game by Mac Jones. It's after a game where he, quite frankly, didn't do much. He didn't have to do much, and he's okay with it. That's what makes this so great. They got their 7th straight win. And this Patriots team, you hinted at this earlier, Tom, but this is basically was my statement. It reminds me of the first championship team with Tom Brady, where in that first season, Brady had 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and he had 1 touchdown and 1 pick in the playoffs. He had under 200 passing yards per game. I know a little bit lesser passing era back then, but even for that era, Brady was by no means a great passing yardage guy very early in his Patriots career. That did change. He did put up some wildly incredible numbers, but early on, specifically the first Super Bowl year, Tom Brady didn't do very much. Mac Jones actually has a better quarterback rating than Tom Brady did that season. Mac Jones, by the way, is 4th in the NFL in completion percentage. So when they ask him to throw the ball, he does it and does it quite well. He's just one of the lowest in the league in pass yard attempts per game. One of the very lowest in the NFL among starting quarterbacks. So it's just that they haven't asked him to win, but he hasn't complained. He's all about winning. I saw a great piece about how close he was to his high school coach. His high school coach passed away from cancer, but he was an instrumental part of his life. Mac Jones seems like a great guy. He seems like a great leader. I absolutely love his story. Just like Tom Brady, he was a guy that was not highly recruited. I know Brady was a 6th-round pick, but Mac Jones was a 3-star recruit out of high school. He went to Alabama when he wasn't expected to play a single down. He was the 3rd-string quarterback behind Hurts and Tua, and he only got to play his senior year because Tua left early for the NFL draft. Had Tua stuck around for his entire college career, we may never have seen Mac Jones play football. So except for in garbage time, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he may not be getting drafted. So I love his story. I love the type of leader he is. I love the type of player he is. He's a very accurate quarterback, extremely accurate, and actually has a pretty solid arm. He may not have Patrick Mahomes' arm, but he's got intelligence and accuracy. He's not going to be as good as Tom Brady, but then again, who is? Like, if that's what you're expecting in your next quarterback, well, good luck. But I think they found their quarterback for the future. This is going to be a guy who's going to be an above-average starter in the National Football League, and an above-average starter could win the Super Bowl with that defense, that head coach, and that running game. As long as he's not a guy you lose games because of, as Tom's like to say, then you're in good shape. So the Pats have found their guy in Mac Jones, and credit to Bill Belichick for going with Mac Jones and not Cam Newton, because everyone expected Cam Newton to be the guy that he was going to go with, and he didn't go with Cam Newton. And I think Mac Jones right now, at least, maybe not better than MVP Cam Newton, but the current Cam Newton versus the current Mac Jones, pretty obvious Mac Jones is the better player. And I also think Mac Jones long-term is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. I know Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, all these guys aren't in very good situations. But I also think those guys are not as consistent. They're very talented athletes, but I think Mac Jones has a better accuracy and he's a better passer. So I think he's going to be the best quarterback out of this draft.
Wow, that's saying something.
Yeah,
wow.
Good. It's a statement of the week. It's bold. And I picked it the week that he threw 3 passes. I like Mac Jones.
Justin Fields.
I think he's better than Justin Fields.
I mean, if you put Justin Fields in New England,
I don't know.
I don't think New England has 4 losses.
I think they do. Justin Fields has shown to be inconsistent with his accuracy, and he's turnover prone. He's getting a lot of turnovers.
But check the team that he's on, though, is what I'm saying.
I know. I'm not so sure New England would be better with Justin Fields. I think they have the guy for their system. I think he's the right guy. I'd like to see Justin Fields play better. I know he's not on the right team, but Justin Fields actually has been underwhelming to me, and Zach Wilson has been a massive disappointment. I know his team is bad, but his backups have looked marginally better than him when they played this season.
Rough start for Mini Mahomes.
Mini Mahomes, as I used to call him that in college. I'm backing off on Zach Wilson in the pros.
It's early. He's got time to get better.
But that's the whole point, though. Mac Jones has time to get better, and those 4 losses that they had was early in the season.
For sure.
So I'm pretty sure they would have 4 losses with Justin Fields. Justin Fields is getting better too, but he was really bad when he first started. Like that first week that he played, they barely got any yards. Again, not entirely his fault, but still. We'll see.
Makes sense.
I like Mac Jones. I think he's the right man for the job.
It'll become his new number 1 overall draft pick for fantasy football.
Not for fantasy football, because, and that's the thing, Mac Jones is not like a fantasy, like he's one of those guys who's better than fantasy. I was actually telling that to my girlfriend who has Mac Jones as their backup. I was trying to explain to her that like the Patriots run the ball and they're ahead in games, and like he's not going to put up wild numbers, but he's like very good. He could put up wild numbers if he was on a different team. I really think that, like he did with Alabama. I mean, he put up insane numbers in college. It's not that he can't throw the ball all over the field. It's just that as good as he is at that, New England is even a little bit better at running, and they're even better at defense. So they don't need him to do that. But I think he can, and it shows you how high his completion percentage is. When he's asked to pass the ball, he does it. And he's had some good throws down the field, too. It's not that he's only dinking and dunking. So Mac Attack, believe in Jones. Anything else you guys want to say? Looking forward to a nice show next week. Hopefully we'll have more things to disagree on. Struggling to find some topics this week, so I figured we'd be on the same page, but we can't not mention the CFP and the Heisman. Those are important things. I have a feeling come next week we'll have more things to disagree on. But thanks for being on the show, guys. Hopefully you're back next week, Drew. Tom, I'm pretty sure you'll be here. So we'll have something to talk about. Everyone else, have a good night and go Cardinals. Topple those Rams on Monday Night Football. Have a good one.